Hi! Welcome to this part of my review featuring Neon Lords of the Toxic Wasteland Core Rulez. If you haven't seen the other parts of my review featuring this science fantasy post-apocalypse role-playing game, please check out the playlist in the description below. This time we are going to talk about more combat rules and the critical hit and critical failure tables. We start with the spellcasting phase. Spells in combat follow the same rules as described in the section on spellcasting. Normal rules apply in regards to each individual spell. The spell resolves at the end of the spell step, unless the duration is noted as instant. If applicable, saving throws are also made during this combat step. Magic users can cast any of their spells as a ritual. This also applies to Skulljammers. Ritual casting is a more deliberate and direct way to cast spells, be it some war wizard's esoteric series of actions performed according to a prescribed order, or the Holy Smiter calling on the aid of his god in a meditative trance. The outcome is the same. An added bonus to the spell check or to hit roll if it's a combat-centric spell. When it comes to the melee attack phase, melee combat is determined by the d20 to hit roll. The number has to tie or be greater than the target's armor class to be a hit. If it is a successful hit, the damage is rolled. Even if initiative is won, when wielding a two-handed weapon, you go after any opponent that is wielding a single-handed weapon. If both parties have two-handed weapons, the winning side of the initiative goes first. A player may forego his attack action and choose a melee action instead. You have several choices for this. When it comes to all-in, the player must declare an all-in attack at the beginning of combat. An all-in attack is a suicidal strike in the hopes of killing the foe before he kills you. With complete disregard for his own safety, the player character makes a brave attack, granting himself a bonus to hit. On a successful hit, an additional die of damage. This attack leaves him vulnerable to other attacks, with a penalty to his armor class until his next turn. You also have the option of dodge, dip, duck, dive. Floating like a butterfly, you can bounce around combat, making yourself a hard target. Until your next turn, you add a bonus to your armor class. There is also I Got Your 6. If the player character is within 5 feet of an ally and wielding a shield, he can add a bonus to his ally's armor class. There's also Rage Race. Any class can expend all their fortune points to add damage and attack to his roll. This action must be chosen before rolling to hit the target. And these are just some of the options that you can carry out instead of your normal attack. Now let's talk about scoring a critical hit or fumble. When a player character rolls a critical success, then they get to roll on the to the max table for that character's class. But when you fumble, you roll on the total bomber table. Neon Lords roll for the monsters on the monsters to the max and total bomber tables. Concerning damage and dying, if an attack is successful, you roll up the damage using the corresponding dice and any modifiers added to it. Then subtract that number from that character's or creature's hit points. If a creature or character falls to 0 hit points, they are dead. Specifically, when creatures, monsters, and non-player characters hit 0 hit points, they die. But player characters, on the other hand, have a bit of tenacity and have one final chance before their souls are released into the Great Ether. You roll a death saving throw. If successful, they are unconscious. If failed, they definitely die. However, there is a rolling over a body optional rule. If a player character reaches 0 hit points, rather than rolling a death saving throw, their fate is in the air and could potentially be still breathing, barely. When the inevitable happens, and a player character falls in combat, they lay unconscious until combat is over, and an ally can roll them over and determine if they are either mutant fodder or alive and still breathing. You have a table to determine this. Perhaps the character is alive, but their strength has been drained, the character's burliness ability score is dropped to 1 and they regain 1 hit point. Or maybe the character is alive but brain damaged. The character's brain ability score is dropped to 1 and they regain 1 hit point. Due to the extreme levels of radiation and downright toxic goo that litter the planet, there is a chance any slain player characters rise from their death as a zombie. When a player character dies, they roll 1d6 and on a result of 1 or 2, they become one with the living dead. They become zombies. Now let's talk about some fumble results, or rather some total bummer results. Maybe you obtain the result of your folly shall be inscribed in the halls of fools for all of eternity. You lose 2 fortune points and everyone treats you like a simpleton. Perhaps you obtain the result of you stumble and step on your enemy's toes. They let out a bellow, alerting their companions. Reinforcements arrive. Perhaps your wild swing comes back and you hurt yourself, dealing normal damage and losing 1 fortune point. Or maybe there is too much blood and gore on your weapon, making it slip right out of your hands while you try to land an attack. The weapon goes in a random direction. You better pick it up. Let me read a couple of the to the max results for each of the character classes. When it comes to the Brutacorn, perhaps you are a rock. Your attack deals an additional 1d6 of damage, and you gain that amount to your armor class until the end of the next turn. Maybe you obtain the result of napalm rounds. Load that bad boy up with some napalm, dealing an additional 1d6 of damage and 1d4 damage at the conditions check phase for 2 turns. When it comes to the Cosmic Barbarian, you have results such as drug-induced bloodlust. You deal 1d4 of extra damage for each cosmic point that you pay. Perhaps you obtain the result of let the cosmos echo thy fury. The attack gains spillover damage and an additional 3d6 of exploding damage. When it comes to the Cyber Skin, there are results such as fight the powers that be. Raging against the enemy, the Cyber Skin takes an additional attack, dealing normal damage. Or maybe you score red, white and spew. Commies detected as far as the eye can see. Using their robot grip, the Cyber Skin rips the target's arms off, causing them to bleed out. Then they do the same to the next target. Then the target after that, and the one after that until all the commies are dead. We have Deathbringer results such as Gargantuan attack deals an additional 2d6 of damage. Or maybe you get the result of condemned to death. The Deathbringer underestimates their own strength, crushing their opponent's head and causing the fiend to make a death saving throw or fall dead. We also have the Dwarfling results, such as Kneecap Destruction. Blows to the knees deal an additional 1d4 of damage and knock the fiend prone, rendering them unable to stand. Perhaps you obtain the result of Lucky Strike. Attack deals normal damage, but the Dwarfling's next fumble becomes a critical success. When it comes to Heather, you have things such as Great, my secret weapon is PMS. Internal Rage adds an additional 1d6 of damage to the attack, Total Rager. Maybe you obtain the result of It's in the Trees. Expend all your ammo to instantly land 1d6 headshots on any number of targets. You deal double damage for each headshot. Concerning the Holy Smiter, you have things such as Mystic Flail of Righteousness. The Holy Smiter's weapon turns into a 2-headed flail for the next 1d4 attacks made by the Holy Smiter. Perhaps you obtain the result of Destroy All Mutants. The Holy Smiter gains the Bloodlust condition, becoming convinced that the enemies are mutants. When it comes to the Night Stalker, you have results such as the True Arc of Chuck comes to the mind's eye of the Night Stalker, granting them an additional attack this turn. Or maybe a barrage of kicks and punches follow up the attack, making the Night Stalker a true karate commando. 1d10 attacks hit for 1d4 damage each. When it comes to the Skulljammer, you could get the result of Cut the Feet. A target that the Skulljammer can see goes blind for the next 1d6 turns. Maybe you obtain Microwave Insanity. The toxic nature of the computer waves blast out of the Skulljammer's deck right into the face of an adjacent enemy, dealing 1d10 plus 2 damage and melting their face off. When it comes to the star spawn, there are results such as super rad energy leaks out of the star spawn's mind and finds its way to any target. This radness grants the target an additional 1d6 to their next roll. This is obviously an ability to boost your allies. Maybe you obtain the result of Laser Eyes. Every psychic needs to shoot lasers out of their eyes, right? The star spawn deals 1d6 damage to a target they can see. Now, concerning the War Wizard, you could get the result of Bloody Mess. A spell does normal damage, plus an additional 1d6. If the target dies, it explodes, while an obscene amount of blood erupts forth, soaking everyone in a 15-foot radius of the target. Anyone within this area must make an agility saving throw, or fall prone in the gore. Perhaps your result is the spell deals no damage. Instead, it turns the target inside out in an explosion that sends bone shrapnel flying into foes within a 10-foot radius. Each enemy takes 1d4 plus 1 of damage. Now, what if the Star Spawn, the War Wizard, the Skulljammer decide to attack using melee instead of their spells and magical and weird abilities? Then you roll on another table, perhaps getting the result of Eyes Poked, causing temporary blindness. Maybe you obtain the result of Strike to the side of the foe's head, dealing normal damage, but they must make a save versus resolve or become dazed. Perhaps you obtain the result of Kick him in the nards, blow to nards, dealing an additional 1d6 damage and leaving them howling in pain. And these are just a few of the many crazy results that you can obtain from these tables. This concludes this part of the review. In the next part we are going to talk about the Neon Lords section, that is the Game Master section. When it comes to these combat options, they are great. The game is simple, but there are still possibilities when it comes to strategies and tactics. I also like the roll over rule, the optional rule. I think it's quite fun. And the Total Bomber and To The Max results are also very colorful and appropriate for each of the characters' classes. A lot of them make pop culture references, so you're going to feel like a Chuck Norris, like the Predator, like Bruce Lee, like Kenshiro from Fist of the North Star, like Rambo. There are so many tributes and references here. And some of those Total Bomber results are quite merciless. This is a game where you can easily die, so you need to be really careful. And I also think that it's great that the To The Max results also have some options. Some results have you targeting multiple enemies or handing out some additional effects, and you need to decide which are going to be your targets for those results. Thank you for watching this part of the review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that have been supporting the channel by sending right through RPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.